Do you want to know the number one trick to improve all areas of your life, from business, personal, professional, friends, family, you name it? I've got the answer for you.
Tradepreneur with dirt on my boots, building dreams instead of chasing suits. Freedom paid in sweat and time, a life that's rough but truly mine.
Welcome everyone to the Tradepreneur Show. I'm Patrick Summers, your host, and today's topic is not about tools, marketing, or even sales. It's about mindset, a mindset that's changing the way I communicate, and it can change the way you communicate, lead conversations, and even host a podcast like this. Recently, I've been diving into improv, and at first glance, you might think, what does improv have to do with running a business? Well, I thought the same thing. However, as I've studied improv, the answer becomes clearer than I've ever imagined. One of the foundational principles of improv is the concept of yes and. So today I want to share my takeaways on the power of those two words that are in our vocabulary, probably use them many, many times throughout the day, yet they are powerful when they're applied correctly. And that's what I want to share, because what I learned in my very first improv class smacked me across the face with a lesson that I knew if I could apply it, not just in the world of improv, but in business, in life, could be a game changer. In fact, the more I thought on it, the more I realized that I was already using it to some extent without having the intention behind it. One of the ideas in improv is you want to set up your partner. You want the other person to look good. You want the story to stay alive. Whatever you're improving, you want it to be able to go and be entertaining. And so if you throw an answer to somebody in a way that shuts down the story, well, that's not good for anybody. So the whole concept, and this is a concept you should apply in life, and I believe most people do. And I realized after learning this concept as it applies to improv, I need to do a better job of it in my own life. And that is set the other person up for success. When you hand something off to somebody, when you engage with somebody, you want them to have success. So your main responsibility is to give them success. So yes, and helps that happen. So let's say in the improv world, somebody says, the sky is green. The worst thing you could possibly do is say, no, it's not. I don't see a green sky. I'm looking at a blue sky. However, if somebody says the sky is green and your response is, yes, and I'm concerned that the aliens are coming, right? Now you've created a story. You've gone along with the reality that other individual is putting out there. You're not shutting them down. You're not giving them a no. You're not becoming confrontational. You're actually allowing the story to evolve in the reality that exists at that time. Remember, it's improv. Now, you may say, okay, that's great. How does that apply to me? How does that apply in everyday life? Well, I'll tell you what. I don't care if you're a tradepreneur, you're working in the trades, you're a technician, a business owner. I don't care if you're in insurance sales, car sales. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're a lawyer, a homemaker. What you do, these two words, one, they set the other person up for success by not allowing them to go on the defensive or forcing them to have to go on the defensive. Two, it actually gives you power and control because you don't have to go on the defensive. You don't have to get combative, so to speak, in a back and forth on whatever the topic may be. They're so powerful when used correctly. So let's think of it in a sales environment. Now, what you have to understand is if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you will know I'm a firm believer everybody is in sales. In fact, if you've ever met my wife, you know the greatest sales job and the greatest close ever was her getting to say yes to me to date and then eventually yes when I proposed to her. Hands down, it should be studied in sales schools across the nation. Because if you saw my wife and you look at me, you'd be like, how did he pull that off? However, I did it. Now, everybody sells. So let's just accept that concept. All right? Everybody sells. Even when you do not think you're in a sales environment, you're selling. You're always selling yourself. You're selling your beliefs. You're selling your wants, your desires. You're selling your outcome in any environment. And that's a whole nother episode we could get into. But for now, let's talk about in a sales environment, specific sales environment. Let's get to the trades. Now, I'm gonna talk trades, but you can apply this to anything. How powerful the word yes and the word and, A-N-D, become. You go out, you're talking to a customer. Let's say they're interested in buying a air conditioner and you're giving them an estimate. And you tell them the price is X amount of dollars. And their response is, that's outrageously crazy. That's unbelievably expensive. Now, what a lot of people will do in this moment is go into explaining the price, trying to justify the price, maybe even directly asking why they think that's expensive, almost getting defensive in that, well, why do you think that price is expensive? Please help me understand how you came to that realization. I sell air conditioners every day, and I've worked for many different companies. I know what they cost. Where's your foundational proof of this is expensive, right? That's the worst thing you could possibly do. And that was a little hyperbole as to an example, but the reality is, that's what we do so many times. Let's bring this back to your personal life. Let's go and just make it every day. You're not in sales. Your spouse, your kids, you tell them something and they refute you. They come back at you with basically a no, or that's not for me, all right? This applies in those scenarios as well. So back to the air conditioning. That's outrageous. That's crazy. The power of you saying yes, and I believe we can find a way to make this affordable for you. Or yes, and help me understand why you believe so. Yes, and is there something particular about this system that we could possibly change to make it more appealing to you and your price point? You've just acknowledged their rejection, their rebuttal, their fear, their concern, right? You didn't argue with them. You didn't put them on the defensive. You literally said yes. You could even get a little crazy and say, yes, I agree with you. It is outrageously expensive. And so is quality and craftsmanship and exceptional service. With that said, I understand this may be more than you expected to invest today. So let's talk. Help me understand what it is that we can change in this system to get it into your price point. Help me understand what your expectations were. Yes, it is outrageously expensive. And I want to better understand what it is you're looking to invest for your heating and cooling system today. See, you have power and you give power. You become co-equals. Nobody's defending. Nobody's getting aggressive. You are literally controlling the situation with the power of yes and you've put it back into the other person's court, so to speak. They now have questions to answer. This is how you get to the root of the objection, because let's be honest here, most of the objections we get are not true objections. Typically, as Grant Cardone says, the only true objection is wrong product. You have them on the wrong product. So they may say this is outrageously expensive, and you say, yes, it is. Now you're acknowledging it, and we have other systems available that you can look at. This was just the one that best fit what you told me mattered to you most. But we have other fantastic systems to look at. Would a lower price point be more conducive to you if we walk away from some of the features of this system? Now you can really drive at a true objection. The answer may be, well, no, I don't want to give up those features. Okay. Fantastic. I agree with you. These are great features. You don't want to give up the fantastic filtration, air purification, super duper dynamic Willy Wonka functioning next level HVAC clean air system. However, if you want this system, that's what you're going to have to invest in. The problem is I don't know if I don't have that much money. Now you're uncovering an objection. The true objection is they don't know how they're going to pay for it. And if you've already introduced financing, they may not feel they're going to qualify for financing, and they're embarrassed or they're afraid of being turned down or rejected. So see, you uncover the real objections, because objections are nothing more than I need more information. And so you have to find a way to get more information. So The power of yes, acknowledge, agree, because outrageously expensive. Look, you and I know what it takes to do quality craftsmanship work. You and I know the cost involved and then still have the right to profitability. They don't know that. And so when they say something like that's outrageously expensive, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. When they say things like that, you have to understand they are speaking what is their reality. And the worst thing you could ever do is confront somebody and challenge what their reality is at that time. Now, their reality is probably based highly on emotion at that moment. Remember, buying decisions are 80% emotion, 20% logic. 80% emotion, 20% logic. So they're going to say things that are unfounded and highly emotional and defensive and protective. The important part to remember, though, is that's their reality. Don't challenge their reality, right? Don't tell a crazy person they're crazy. You're just going to agitate them. Yes sets up, I agree. Doesn't mean you agree to the sense that you're all in and they're right. It just means yes and, right? So you can go two ways. You can say, yes, it is. We have other options available. Or, yes, and help me understand what we have to do today to get you the system that best fits your needs. Now, let's take this to the home front. We touched on a little bit. You want superpowers against your spouse? Now, this is the important part. After you listen to this, destroy it. Don't let your spouse hear this because they're going to have the equal superpowers. If you're going to have the superpowers, make sure you are the only one with the superpowers. You come home. It's been a long day. You're tired. You're stressed out. But your spouse is more tired and more stressed out. Probably your day was a cakewalk compared to theirs. And you walk in the door and they say, why can't you ever get home on time? You're late and I'm waiting for you and we're supposed to go to dinner and now we're late for dinner. Well, typically, I know because I've done this a time or two, you'll say, listen, I'm working. You're going to bust my chops over here because I'm working and I'm getting things done. We got this house. We got all this. This doesn't grow on trees. This just doesn't happen. It doesn't just manifest without putting the work in. So, we missed dinner. Well, the restaurant's still open. Let's just go to the restaurant. Get over yourself. Not going to go well. Trust me. I have the proof. I have the scars. Now, in that same scenario, that same unloading comes at you. Remember, it's just unloading. They've had a rough day. They're stressed out. You're their relief. They trust you. They hopefully love you. They're going to unload on you because you're safe. You're a safe person to unload on until you come back. And now you're fighting, and then you go your separate ways, and you don't go to dinner, and you're pissed off at each other, and then you don't sleep well, right? Again, been there a few times. So imagine that comes at you, and you say, yes, and I'll make it up to you. Let's go to such and such place for dinner tonight instead of where we were planning. Yes, and I'm really working to get my schedule under control. Today was a rough day. It was really challenging for me. Let me make it up to you. Let's get to dinner now. When you say yes, you're acknowledging their reality. Because then what happens? You go to dinner, and then that spouse ends up, you know what? I apologize for the way I came at you when you came in the door. I just had a rough day. The kids were this, or the work was this, or whatever. And then you're like, yeah, no, I get it. And I'm really trying to come home earlier, or trying to, not work as hard, or work as hard more efficiently, whatever it may be. That's the power of yes and. And again, the main factors in applying it is practicing it. Because like anything, if you don't practice it, you're not going to get comfortable with it. And so this takes me back to improv as well. In the classes, we do so many warm-ups. The whole focus is just practicing saying yes, acknowledging, helping, right? Those foundational principles. That's so much of what the start of the class is every single time, because it has to become second nature. To be able to say, when somebody comes at you with something, an objection, an argument, whatever, to be able to have the answer be yes, and if you don't practice it, it's not going to become second nature, number one. Number two, when you do use it, it's going to come across unpracticed, unnatural. It's going to be uncomfortable. Just like when I tell salespeople, if you do not practice and role play, presenting at the kitchen table, presenting at the desk if you're a car dealership or whatever, if you do not practice and role play financing, how to present financing, how to work up your payment factor and all of that while you're in front of the homeowner, if you do not practice that to its second nature, you will do it in front of the homeowner, you will look clumsy, you will be unsure of yourself, you will communicate that And what you're communicating is, this guy's sketchy. He's not comfortable doing this. What is he new? He must not know his stuff. He must be practicing on me. I'm not sure I want to do business with this guy. So then what do you hear? Yeah, I got to talk to my spouse. Oh, I need to think about it. Oh, we're not ready to do it yet. Oh, I got to find out how we're going to pay for it. Every one of those is not an objection. It's a stall, and it's a cover to something else. And in this instance, it's a cover to you creating concern in the homeowner. So we're back to yes and, because what's one of the greatest ways you can avoid creating concern, and one of the greatest ways you can create acceptability, likability, and trust. And that is acknowledging somebody's reality and agreeing with them. So if you can master those things and you can apply those things in your personal life, in your professional life, it's a game changer, total game changer. Here's a real life story that I've used in my business to demonstrate the power of yes and. I want to share an encounter I had with a customer. However, it wasn't the typical encounter you'd have face-to-face or over the phone. We got a 1-star Yelp complaint. And the guy, it just kind of goes off. And here's one of the reasons Yelp sucks, is you can never find who the person is, because they use these different names like Puppy Dog 106 or some nonsense. Whereas Google, you can typically identify enough of the name, you can find them in your database. I happened to respond to this guy, and I said, hey, listen, I want to know more what's going on. And he responded back to me, and then I could find out who he was. And I called him, and we had dropped the ball in this case. We had ordered a part. The part kind of got delayed or lost, whatever it was. I don't remember the specifics. When I talked to him, when I read his complaint, and I talked to him, and then he explained it more on the phone, and I literally said, yes, we definitely dropped the ball here, and I want to make it right for you. What I would like to do is I'd like to take control of this issue myself. I will see it through to the end. I will make sure we have the part in. We will come out, we will get the repair done, and I will only charge you our costs. And he said, wow, I think that's more than fair. I said, well, I think it's more than fair that you're allowing me to make this right for you. So I appreciate it. Before he hung up, he said, you know, your guys were out here 6 months ago, and they gave me an estimate for ductwork for my home. When they come out to do the repair, could you send them with that estimate? I think I'm going to move forward with it. I said, yeah, I'll be sure to do that. So I got off the phone. I took care of everything, made sure we got the part. We got it scheduled, and I literally went to my business partner who handles sales. I said, listen, we're going out. This is the deal. This is what happened. He wanted us to bring this estimate out. The estimate was for $8,000. It was more than just ductwork. It was cut-in returns and things like that. We went out with the estimate. That day, we did the repair for our cost and sold $8,000 in ductwork off of a 1-star Yelp review. And he went back and upgraded it to 5 stars. Now, there's a couple lessons there. One, I acknowledged the Yelp review. I reached out to the guy, and I wanted to make it right. But it's an instance in the past without me realizing I was using yes and, where I used yes and it turned a negative literally into a positive. So it works so well, and it's so simple, I call it a superpower. But superpowers have to be applied, right? Knowing how is a lot different than doing. So you may know how to do it, but you need to do it. So I hope you're able to take this and apply it in ways that make sense. You know, when we talk about yes and talking about this episode, I can't help but think of this great movie, one of the greats, Jim Carrey, Yes Man. The whole idea, the whole concept is he has to say yes to every opportunity. And the movie exaggerates it a little bit naturally for the comedic effect. But under all the humor, there's a real life lesson. Sometimes we spend so much time protecting ourselves, right? We avoid discomfort. We don't want to get out on the skinny branches. We avoid risk. We avoid risk so much, and we embrace comfort so much that we unintentionally avoid growth. The movie isn't really about saying yes to everything. It's about becoming open to the possibilities. And my personal takeaway, I'm still learning, and I'm not an improv expert by any means. I don't even know if you can achieve expertise. But what I've realized in this improv, in this experience I'm having, it isn't really about being funny. It's about being present. It's about listening and trusting and adapting creating together, ironically, an amazing scene, an amazing moment that entertains people. And while we may not be entertaining in the trades or as an entrepreneur or a business person, we are there to put on a production, create an experience, and create an outcome for our customers. And so I think that the lessons that I'm learning and the lessons I'm sharing here help us to do that, because great improv artists and great business people and great entrepreneurs have more in common than we think. I hope that you took away the power of yes and I hope you appreciate some of the real life examples, as well as the importance of leadership and the elements of leadership. We are all leaders if we choose to be. Everybody has an opportunity to lead, and leadership shows up at different times and different moments. And there's times to lead and there's times to let others lead. And part of being a leader is knowing when those times are. But remember, leadership is an always on mindset. And so I hope the takeaways here, I hope the power of the yes and all of that resonates with you. I really hope you can take it and apply it in your life, practice it. I'd love to hear how you've used yes and in your own life, whether it's personal or business. Love to hear those stories. Appreciate the support and the following on the Tradepreneur Show. We're slowly growing over the years and grateful for any likes, follows. If you think somebody could benefit from this, appreciate you sharing it with them. And until next time, remember, win the day and be great.
I don't wear a suit and tie, don't need letters by my name, just a hammer, grit, and a vision, and a fire you can't tame. So raise a glass to the ones who build this country hand by hand. I wouldn't trade a single day as a blue-collar working man.
The Tradepreneur Show is brought to you by Patrick Summers. Executive production by David Field, producer. Producing and editing by David Field and Kristen George. Original theme song, Blue Collar Working Man, written by Patrick Summers, created using Suno AI. To be a guest on the Tradepreneur Show or for sponsorship and partnership opportunities, contact Patrick Summers. Patrick at thetradepreneurshow.com.